Discrimination was rampant, it was intentional, it was systemic.
Pre-1968, we really were two countries.
The right to access housing is so fundamental to almost every other thing that we do. It had a devastating impact on inequality in this country.
There are riots all over the country in American cities.
We all know that the roots of injustice run deep.
My name is Carlos Campbell. In 1965, I was on active duty as a naval officer, and I received orders to the Defense Intelligence Agency headquarters. When I arrived to Northern Virginia, I would call various places, and they always said they had a vacancy. When I showed up in uniform, there were no vacancies, and I was turned down over a period of about 4 weeks by 39 places.
There were literally whites-only newspaper ads for the rental of property. Not to mention, if you wanted to purchase a home in a historically white neighborhood, you were openly denied.
Before 1968, there were two Americas. There was a white America, and there was a quote-unquote colored America, which could mean black or Hispanic, etc. So the neighborhood that you would live in and the school your children would go to was limited based on what you looked like, not on your economic achievements, your intelligence, your character, or anything else.
Women couldn't often access housing without a husband or a father being a part of the transaction. There was incredible discrimination against people on the basis of religion, on the basis of disability.
We were forcibly divided from each other, and whole groups of us did not have the opportunities to build wealth.
It was really an American system of housing apartheid.
The big thing, the point I tried to make was this. I put my life on the line, as did my fellow aviators. And it really should not be because I'm a naval officer, but just as an American, I had a right. How can you pursue happiness if you can't get housing?
Dr. King was assassinated April 4th, 1968, and really our cities went up in flames.
The death of Martin Luther King, the tragedy of April 4th, 1968, and the resulting uprisings in city after city across the nation, in many respects shamed Congress into finally acting on the Fair Housing Act.
You had the members of Congress virtually in a lockdown at the Capitol and really recognizing that the time had come.
Word came from Capitol Hill that Congress had passed and sent to the White House the Civil Rights Act of 1968.
Fair housing for all human beings who live in this country is now a part of the American way of life.
This legislation gave the federal government for the first time not only the ability, but really the mandate to fight discrimination in housing.
What it did is it created the right of people to go to court, to challenge discrimination where it may exist. But I think the most important thing, what it did is it set forth national policy, national public policy that, quote, acknowledged the long history of discrimination in housing, rental, ownership, mortgages in this country, and put the federal government's public policy squarely on the side of change.
I still think, for all of its problems, I do think it was a game-changing law, because what would the alternative have been?
It probably was the least enforced piece of civil rights legislation in the 20th century because the resistance was extreme. We are still a society that is rigidly segregated along the lines of ethnicity.
There are still too many places in this country where communities of color, people with disabilities, women are unable to have equal access to housing or to credit.
There's a chance for us to right all that didn't get right as a result of this law. And I look forward to being one of those people who work on making it right.
It isn't enough to commemorate a legislation. It should really be that when we honor and celebrate 50 years of the enactment of landmark legislation, that it's actually a call to action.
50 years later, what the nation needs is not a weakening, but a strengthening not only of the laws, but a strengthening of the nation's commitment to end discrimination, be it intentional or not, in the housing markets of this country. Rental, home ownership, mortgages, all the way across the board.
I'm encouraged as I go around the country. It's not all awful, but we have work to do. We have lots of work to do.